Makoto Shinkai was born on February the 9th, 1973, and is one of the top anime directors who is still working. He is mainly known for his 2016 absolutely stellar movie, one of the highest rated movies of all time and my favourite movie, Your Name. After that, he also made Weathering With You, which also got a lot of positive reviews and compliments. He also has a new movie coming out later this year, sorry if I'm butchering the name, Suzumi no Tojimari. But his 2007 three-parter movie, 5 centimeters per second, is one of his most known movies, but not one of his most acclaimed. And sure, on my anime list, more than 70,000 people gave it 10 out of 10. But its average is only 7.62 when it deserves a much higher rating in the range of at least 8.5. 5 centimeters per second was released on March 3rd, 2007 in Japan, and is in 3 parts even though most people know it as a one movie. The runtime is short at only 63 minutes, which makes it an easy watch. It follows the story of Takaki Tono, Akari Shinohara, and Kane Sumida. It's an emotional classic, but before we get into my review of the movie, here's my breakdown of what happens in 5 centimeters per second. Episode 1 begins with a young Akari and Takaki, as Akari gives the movie its name as she mentions the speed a petal falls is 5 centimeters per second.
They say it's 5 centimeters per second.
Akari gets chased by Takaki before she crosses the train tracks and says she can hope they can watch the cherry blossoms together next year. A lot of the next part of the movie is done in letters and narration, so it's a bit more difficult for me to review. Through a letter, Akari talks about both places they live being very hot and the last time they was together being at their elementary school graduation around 18 months ago. We find out that Takaki is moving schools even further away from where Akari lives. In another letter, Akari mentions multiple stuff, including that she's been getting up earlier now and has been cutting her hair, and she bets that Takaki is changing as well. We see Takaki start to write a letter as the day ends. After another letter by Akari, Takaki asks his friends if they know a way to go to Tajigi, but they say he could always get there on the bullet train. Akari was surprised when she learned that Takaki was going to move schools to Kagoshima. She feels sad that he will be that far away. In another letter from Akari, we learn that they're going to be meeting up for the first time in a year on March 4th. She is nervous, but they will see the cherry tree she has mentioned multiple times, and the petals will fall at 5 centimeters per second. We see Takaki in school reading his plan for what they're going to be doing. Akari will be waiting at the station at 7 PM, which is when the train should arrive. He gets on the train at 3:54 and it starts to snow. We go to a flashback of Akari and Takaki finding a cat and them talking about books together. They were very similar. A year after Takaki moved to the schools, she joined as well. Both had bad allergies and preferred to stay inside and read in the library. Their classmates teased them for this, but they didn't care. Takaki always assumed they'd be going to the same junior high. Takaki gets onto the next train at Shinjuku Station. It's now 4:30. His heart is pounding. The train stops at 5 minutes to 5. We go back to when Akari called Takaki to reveal she was moving schools. She kept apologizing, but he told her not to. He couldn't do anything to cheer her up or make her feel better. He arrives at another station. It's now 5:15, and the train is delayed by 8 minutes. He only now realizes he might not be there in time. It's now 6 PM. He needs to get there in 1 hour, but the train is behind schedule, and it keeps getting further and further behind the time they're supposed to meet. At the next station, the train stops for what feels like an eternity. It's now 7 PM. He is late. He thinks about her being worried. He remembers the call, but he couldn't comfort her on it. He feels ashamed. He received the first letter 6 months after she moved away. He knew it off heart. 2 weeks before they met up, he wrote a letter to give to her. It's now 7:41. He's a whole 41 minutes late. The trains are far behind schedule due to the snow. At 8:15, all he can do is continue trying to get to Akari Station and her. As he waits for the next train, he accidentally loses the letter he meant to give to her. The train arrives before he can get it back, and he doesn't have time to try and find it. Eventually, the train has to stop for an unknown amount of time due to the weather and rescheduling. After 2 full hours, the train starts to move again. All he can do is grit his teeth and try and hold back his tears. He begs her not to wait, just go home. But he finally arrives at her station. It's now 11:15, more than 4 hours late. He enters the station room, and she's there. He walks up to her and they just stare at each other before she grabs him. She gives him food and drinks as they start to talk like old friends would. He says the food is the most delicious food he has ever had. She replies it's probably because he's hungry. He's moving away next week and he'll be even further away from Akari than he's ever been before. He won't be able to see her anymore. He can't just pop onto a train. They walk through the snow after getting kicked out of the station. Akari mentions the cherry tree that she wrote about, but it's just bark now. No blossoms, no cherries. As they stand in front of the cherry tree, they just stare at each other and they go silent. They slowly lean in to kiss. As he kisses her, he can feel the heart, the soul, all the experiences. But the next moment he feels sad. He doesn't know what to do. He knows they can't stay together. But soon all of his fears go away as they finish their kiss. They embrace under the tree as I realize that Akari's only wearing a skirt in this weather. Why are you wearing a skirt? She must go into a coma. It's way too cold. She's probably dreaming right now. How is she alive? She's been at that station since at least 7, and even if the station had warmth, she's been running through the snow. This makes no sense. This movie's bad. The next morning after they slept together, I don't mean sex, but they just slept together, I'm pretty sure. She says goodbye as he gets back on the train. He didn't even mention the letter he lost. He tells her to take care. She will be okay. He will write, he will call, and the train leaves. Episode 2 begins with Akari and Takaki on a mountain. The sky is unrealistically beautiful as this is just a fantasy. We see Takaki doing some archery and we meet another of the main characters, Kanai. She rides to school on her bike as she talks to her sister in her van. As she gets to school, she checks her hair and hides behind a tree preparing to talk to Takaki. As they meet, we learn they're friends and Kanai is a surfer. We also find out it's time for them to all fill out a career survey, but Kanai still doesn't know what she wants to do. Her friends tease her as it's kind of obvious she's a crush on Takaki. We see Kanai next to the beach as the sun begins to set, as her sister tells her not to worry as she'll catch the right wave eventually. It's been a long time since she's managed to successfully ride a wave. We see Takaki once again doing archery as Kanai hides behind a wall waiting for him. Her plan works as Takaki asks her if she wants to ride home together.
Wanna head back together?
One of the lines that makes me laugh most about this movie is that she says that if she was a dog, her tail would be wagging so much. Thank God she isn't a dog, and she even criticizes herself for such a stupid thought. She narrates the day he entered the school. She fell in love with him immediately. She studied hard to go to the same high school as him and somehow managed to get in. Every time Kanai sees Takaki, she gets happy and she can't contain herself. Kanai always sees Takaki writing emails. She just wishes he was writing to her. The next day we find out she is the only person who has not finished their career plan. She still doesn't know what to do. She goes back to surfing but is still unsuccessful at catching a wave. For both the surfing and Takaki, she isn't getting anywhere she wants to be. She goes to ride home one day, but her bike has a few errors, but she manages to get it to work. She sees Takaki's bike by a hill and she climbs up and sees him on his phone. He says he is glad that she came by. She thinks he's way too nice. It makes her want to cry. She asks him about college and he says he's going to a college in Tokyo. He asks her the question, she says she still isn't sure. He says that's okay, she just needs to live life one day at a time. And then Kanai throws a paper airplane down the hill. They ride home and stop at an intersection as they see a truck pass them. Kanai says it's a rocket that is going to be launching soon and go to the center of the solar system. Takaki wonders why he writes messages to himself and wonders when he started. After her conversation with Takaki, Kanai seems a lot more upbeat and happy. She goes surfing and finally for the first time in 6 full months, she successfully rides a wave. In school, Kanai's friends say she seems a lot more happy and upbeat. She says she is planning on telling Takaki how she feels. You can see how anxious she is getting about telling him, and they meet up after school and they start to ride home. But as they get out of a shop, Kanai tries to get her bike to start, but it doesn't work, but he says they'll just walk. She tries to tell him, but she just can't. They start walking in silence as Kanai is very nervous and she even starts crying behind him. Takaki finally notices he asks repeatedly what is wrong, but she can't answer. In the background, the rocket mentioned earlier finally takes off as they both stare, and it's just such a beautiful bit. No music, just the diegetic noise of the rocket going through the atmosphere. As they finish walking home, Kanai realizes that her dream will never come true, as Takaki was never looking at her, he was looking past her. So she didn't say anything to Takaki, as she knew it would never happen. She falls asleep that night still thinking of Takaki. The final episode begins with Takaki on his computer. He goes for a walk and passes Akari Shinohara. They both go to look back, but since they take so long, when they finally decide to turn, a train comes between them. He felt that if he turned around earlier, she would have as well. Takaki gets a call from Riza, his presumably ex-girlfriend. He looks at the screen, but he doesn't pick up. It appears that he still loves Akari. We see Akari talking to her family. She mentions that she is going to a wedding next month.
I'll see you at the wedding next month.
But whose wedding? We see Akari with a ring on. It appears that it's her wedding. Last night she dreamt about the past, when she and Takaki was children. Maybe it was because she found an old letter yesterday. We see Takaki smoking on his balcony. He gets another message from Risa, and we see him knocking over cans to get to his phone. The message says even though they was together for 3 years, their hearts didn't get an inch closer. It's now apparent that Takaki can't move on from Akari, even though she can move on. All he can do is work due to the sadness in his life. He's clearly depressed and even quits his job. As I previously mentioned, he had been drinking a lot. Him and Akari both narrate about a dream they had. A dream of long ago, when they was 13. They both believed they would watch the cherry blossoms, but it never took place. The movie ends with a montage with a beautiful song. As we see all three main characters, Takaki, Akari and Kanai, living their lives, and it seems that they're slowly moving on. It's apparent that Akari has already moved on from Takaki, as she is engaged and soon to be married. Kanai is slowly getting over Takaki, and Takaki is slowly getting his life back in order. The movie ends as Takaki passes Akari on the street. Instead of waiting for the train to pass, he just continues walking, symbolizing the end of him wanting Akari. So now we go into each category in this movie before I can give you my final thoughts. This movie is so beautiful. It's kind of insane. I'm on edge about whether or not I think this movie is more beautiful than Your Name or Weathering With You, as both of those movies are some of the greatest animated movies I've ever seen. Personally not sure which movie I think is the most beautiful, as movies that people call the most beautiful I still haven't seen, like Into the Spider-Verse. But 5 centimeters per second is different. The animation seems more relaxed than in Your Name and certainly more relaxed than in Weathering With You. All 3 movies have amazing styles, but while Your Name and Weathering With You have almost identical art styles, this movie stands alone with its own art style, and I applaud it for that. I mean, just look at some of the shots that I've been showing through this entire bit that I'm talking about. It's just so beautiful. It seems like all of Makoto Shinkai's movies are absolutely stunning. Damn, you wanted to have a good time. This movie disagrees with you personally. The whole time it's sad and dark and nothing really good happens. I don't know if it's definitely a good thing, but it's not bad. The movie is completely serious. Makoto Shinkai seems to be very good at serious movies with a bit of comedy. But this is just serious, as the story of Akari, Takaki and Kanai is amazing and I love it. I don't know why I find this story so heartwarming, but it's just a story of moving on from your past and don't let it hold you back. You can't always hold out hope for something that will never happen, or almost certainly never happen. And while it takes Takaki a while to move on, and while it takes Kanai a while to move on, I feel like it's way more realistic. And I just absolutely loved the whole story. There aren't really any side characters, and there are only 3 main characters in the entire film, but it's so good, and I like the ending as Takaki finally moves on, even if the ending sort of starts right out of nowhere. He's finally let everything go, as he's always needed to. I love both Takaki and Kanai, but Akari? Damn, I don't really know how to feel about it, as she isn't in the movie that much. And while it also takes a while to introduce Kanai, but once she is introduced, the movie gives her about 20 full minutes to herself and her life, which makes her feel important. No wonder why on my anime list it shows her above Akari but still behind Takaki. Speaking of Takaki, he is a great character. He is the definition of a nice guy. No, not the Reddit nice guys. Takaki's just a really nice person. Even though it's obvious Kanai likes her, he doesn't bring it up, and I don't even know if he knows personally, but he's just a good friend to her. It feels genuinely really sad when he starts to drink a lot and smoking, and he gets depressed, as he seems just like such a nice guy. But the ending brings the movie back around to how it should be. And while I don't actually think any of the characters are better than Mitsuha or Taki from Your Name, probably all 3 of them are better than the characters from Weathering With You, as I can't really remember them very well. All the characters are fun, except Akari. I don't really know how to feel about her still. She's weird. She's not in the movie that much. She's in it for like, what, a full 10 minutes? The whole beginning is Takaki mainly talking about Akari and showing flashbacks. And then she's only there for a few minutes, and then at the ending she's there again. She doesn't do anything wrong, but she's just not there enough for me to have any personal feelings about it. Makoto Shinkai's 2007 classic 5cm per second is one of my favourite animes. My best friend Maya didn't want me to watch it again as she was 100% sure I'd lower my rating from a 10 out of 10 to a 9 or an 8. It's her favourite movie ever, but I'm pleased to say that I enjoyed this movie once again, and maybe even my favourite viewing so far. And I gave it a 10 out of 10 again. I currently put it behind Your Name, A Silent Voice, Attack on Titan, and Spirited Away, and I do agree that Makoto Shinkai's most popular movie, Your Name, is definitely better, but I'd love to watch this again, and since it's only 1 hour long, which is a good length for a short movie, I like movies between 1.5 hours to 2 hours, but if a movie's supposed to be short, 1 hour is like the perfect length for it to be. If you haven't seen this movie, well, I'm kind of sorry for spoiling it all for you. I left out so much detail that you need to see to understand why it's so good. My review does not give it justice. If you want to watch a movie, if you've ever thought about watching this movie, then do it right now. End this video. Don't even leave a like. Don't even subscribe if you haven't seen the film before. That's probably not a good idea to say that. But my name has been Jaden from Codename Taiku, and thank you for all tuning in. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, as I aim to make 1 video per week, and so far, I'm doing pretty decent, I think. Well, as long as this one goes up on time, considering it's already Wednesday when I'm doing the audio, and I usually do it on Monday.